Maschine Masters. My name is MGTheFuture. Today I got another exclusive tutorial for you guys. It's Wednesday, so we know it's what would producer do. I'm gonna change up things a little bit today because I'm gonna be experimenting with FL Studio. I'm using the Mac beta. It went from alpha release, which didn't offer a lot of features, just basic functionality, to the beta, which is pretty close to completion. It doesn't allow third-party plugins yet, so I'm gonna be using a lot of stock Fruity Loop stuff. And like I told you guys when I first started doing these videos, I've used Fruity Loops for over 10 years when I used to be a Windows guy. So I'm still getting adjusted to it with the newer version. But anyway, the track I'll be reviewing is produced by Ben Jayne. It's a Rich the Kid track featuring Kendrick Lamar. It's called New Freezer. It's a pretty dope track. It kind of reminds me of like a designer type flow. And of course, there's a New York rapper, so it's like trap. Actually, better way to describe it, this track feels more like a Mike Zombie type track back when he was doing stuff for Drake. So it has that vibe to it. It's pretty simple to break down, but since I'm using FL Studio, I wanted to highlight something called ghost channels. I don't know if it's something that people really use to the max, so hopefully by exposing you guys to it, it'll give you some new context and hopefully inspire you to do some new things. So let me give you a preview of this track real quick and then go through what we're about to do with it. So first, here's a snippet. Let me change the pitch of it just because.
I never sleep, I gotta eat, I gotta dance. I merely rap when I get that advance. How can I shop with like 64 M's? Talking to top about business again. He want a lot with new Bentleys again. I want some top from like two sets of twins. Twins, yeah. Hey, bitch, we your friends, yeah. Hold up, switch. Hold up. She won't in, yeah. Falling in bundles of flowers like Parliament.
Yeah, definitely played a high quality version of this track. Kendrick Lamar pretty much snapped on it. What I want to bring attention to though is that chord in the background, which is the main element of this track. The drums are going like an A and B pattern where it's just the kick, and then the drums with the triplets going, which is just a simple 2-bar loop of triplets. It's kind of opposite of what Mike Will would do. Mike Will would drop the kick. This track is doing the opposite. It's dropping everything but the kick. So I won't play this for you where that part exists. Cool. So what I want to do is take that instrumental, right click it, convert harmony to a new MIDI track. I end up getting this. This particular track is in the tempo of 70 beats per minute. In Fruity Loops, you know, we start with 140 back in the day, FL Studio 7 and 8. So what I'm going to do is double time the MIDI so it's in the right time when I go into Fruity Loops. It'll look like this. And what I'll have to do is right click on it, export MIDI clip, and I want to name it double time. Cool. I did the same for the actual audio file. You just export this file, export as audio file, and get an audio loop so you can use that as your reference so you can ear check it. And also it helps me with the drums. Speaking of the drums, I kind of did them already just to speed up the flow of this video, so I'm gonna let you hear that real quick. It's really 3 elements. In FL Studio, because it's a program that I like to experiment with arrangements more, I usually end up putting each individual element on its own channel. With that being said, I normally don't use more than 16 elements. So as you can see with my pattern browser here, I only have kick only, snare only, hi-hats only. And I'm gonna go ahead and play that for you. And the main meat and potatoes of this track is this second pattern here. And if you're using Fruity Loops and you're wondering how to get the triplets and how to switch things up like that, click on this magnet here, which snap to grid, and do 1/3 step. So it puts in triple time. You can do 1/3 beat, but its resolution isn't as fine as 1/3 step. And then always remember to switch it back to whole steps or whole beats when you go back to drawing different elements such as melodies and stuff. So I have the drums situated. I'm gonna go ahead and mix that up with the audio file. And luckily for us, you could just drag and drop into playlist. We want to make sure this is on point. And what you can do is just look at the hi-hats or the patterns that you have in question and mute them, and just see if it flows along with what you're hearing from the original song. So I'm going to take these two out because I actually don't hear these. And because I filtered that high end is actually a reverb and delay. So I should be fine. I'll go ahead and go back to my audio channels, mute that audio track. Cool, so that's much better. The main part we want though is the chords. That's the only element I don't have yet. So I'll hit the plus sign to add a new pattern. I'm going to name it chords. And what I'm going to want on this is a VST. But before I do that, I'm going to insert something called MIDI out. A MIDI out basically is a mechanism to allow you to control external gear. Also, it'll let you control multiple channels on a multi-timbre instrument such as Kontakt. So if you have one Kontakt instance, but you load multiple instruments within one instance of Kontakt, you can use MIDI out to control each of those channels so you don't waste processing or CPU. But I don't need anything in it. Only thing I need to do here is go to the piano roll. I'm gonna go to the file menu and I'm gonna import the MIDI file, which is double time. And in order for ghost channels to work, you need a channel that has MIDI on it, and on the same pattern, a VST instrument that also has MIDI. So I'll show you what I mean. So let's use something like Sakura. Go to piano roll, and ghost channels is already enabled, but it allows you to see the MIDI data that I imported. So what I want to do is, if you don't have this turned on by default, it's under File, Helpers, Ghost Channels. Alternatively, you could push Alt and V key. So now I could trace this, and if you see me do this kind of thing in Ableton, it's kind of trial and error where you adjust notes and delete them as you go and keep playing them. Well, this, you could just see it. So what I can do is draw this pattern here, loop just that first region, I'll mute my kick. I want to turn that audio track back on. I want to turn it all the way down just so that it's faint. I'm going to go to piano roll again. So I'm just going to make sure these notes are hitting at the same time, making sure the timing's correct. So what I'm going to do is put this back on step. Cool. So those are the right notes. Wrong instrument though. I like that one. I'm gonna go ahead and add a different instrument just in case. I'm gonna layer it up. So I'm gonna go to edit. I'm gonna copy those notes. I'm gonna paste it to the new one. I'm gonna turn this way down. So now that I have a combination of sounds that I like, and Fruity Loops, because it has a different sonic texture, especially when using their default plugins, I normally always layer these. So what you do is you assign them to the same channel, and this is new in Fruity Loops to me, is that instead of you going into the actual instrument, the channel you can assign to your mixers here. So I'm going to assign this to 4, which is unused. And since I'm using, I have a basic version of Fruity Loops, so some of these instruments are simply demos, so that means there's a lot of dropout. You may actually hear that in the video that they're cutting off. They do that to annoy you, so you buy it. But to get past that, assign them to one channel. I can rename this synths. And what I'll do is open up Edison, and I'm going to record this or dub it as an audio file. It's very similar to resampling. So instead of doing it on input, I'm going to do on play. I'm going to cue it up to record. And because I'm doing on play, it's going to hit little start markers. And I'm going to show you why that's important. It'll make more sense once you see it. So in most programs, when you dub a VST to audio, you always want to take the second take. So that's why I use on play, because you use the arrows on your keyboard and move to that second take and use this key right here to drag and drop it as an audio clip into your playlist. So now I can use that instead of the MIDI data. And then you can rename that, of course. So now in the future, if you don't have that instrument no more, or if the demo deletes it when you save it in Fruity Loops, you can export this as a zip package and still access the sound of what it is. And of course you can copy and paste your MIDI data to MIDI out. And since that's a free plugin, it won't get rid of it. So that's why I've kind of developed that kind of workflow to kind of help you. But beyond that being ghost channels to kind of copy chords from samples you may analyze with Melodyne or other programs that are similar to what Ableton does, it also helps you with your bass lines, right? So what I'm going to do is copy that particular MIDI data. I'm going to create a new channel, and I'll name that 808. And since I'm on that, I'm going to go ahead and paste it back in. And now there's no sound coming out of this. I just want the MIDI data. So I'm going to draw 808 there, go to my browser. I'm going to find the 808. So I found the 808. I believe I could change the key of it so it's in E flat, which is here. Hopefully that's C. I'm going to change the attack on it, or the envelope I should say. And now I can go into piano roll and do the 808s by following the bottom of the chords. The only problem I noticed right there is that my 808s are too low. So I'm gonna go ahead and move this up and then go back to my 808s. And the cool thing about Fruity Loops, where everyone gets those crazy 808s, it's the slide and portamento notes. Basically, they change the MIDI data to emulate a slide or, you know, your mod wheel or what have you. So when you click on it, your next note's going to have that effect. Cool, so now I have my 808s. Now I can play everything together, or at least switch this up. And have it go something like this. And you can do the same thing with like leads and stuff. You can add more elements to it. And that's how you use ghost channels, or at least that's how I use ghost channels to help me compose at a higher level than I actually was when I first started with Fruity Loops years ago. And since I've left it and switched to Mac, of course, I've learned a lot of stuff with MIDI. That's why I know a lot of the MIDI tricks within Ableton with the MIDI modifiers. But Fruity Loops was the OG of that, back when you had to draw everything, or you needed to draw everything. So of course, having that background data helps you be able to foresee certain things, especially if you're experimenting with melodies. You're never out of key because you're tracing. Another cool thing to do in this particular view is to take each note and extend them straight across your sequence and use that as your scale and copy it 1 octave up and 1 octave down, and that'll allow you to use different keys as well for lower notes and higher notes, but everything's still within the scale, or you're using the scale of your sample, basically, whatever your reference is. And I know I'm using a trap or known song for this, but you could do this to intros to soul samples like the EPs and the pianos and strings, and kind of help you see and visualize them and build around them, especially when it comes to bass and those crazy 808s all the kids are doing. But anyway, hopefully you guys learned a thing or two from this. Greetings to all the new FL Studio subscribers, because I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to be seeing this. If there's anything in Fruity Loops that you guys want me to go over, or you want me to cover in future videos, definitely let us know in the comments below. If you want to reach out to us directly, you can reach us on social media. My screen name is @MGTheFuture. Also be sure to follow at Maschine Masters, and I'll put that at the bottom of the video. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next time.